Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dave Russell. Well, one of our country's top competitors in the world soybean market is currently in its planting season, yet delays are being noted in its planting progress.
Brazil soybean planting, this is the time of the year where it tends usually to ramp up.
Which is why USDA analysts like World Agricultural Outlook Board Chair Mark Jekanowski have an eye on this competitor to U.S. soybeans in the global markets. Initial data indicates
planting pace has been very slow so far this year, particularly in Mato Grosso,
due to a dry monsoon season in Brazil delaying planting.
In some media reports and analyst reports, that's been raising concerns about potential yield impacts in Brazil because of the late planting, maybe some area impacts as well.
Yet Brazilian production in USDA's October World Soybean Production Forecast holds to trend yields for that crop.
Historically, we found that there's relatively little correlation between the timing of the planting within Brazil and the final yield outcome. So it's really just a matter of when that monsoon season kicks in.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Farmers for Free Trade, the National Trade Advocacy Coalition, including America's largest ag and food associations, released a reaction to new trade analysis from the National Corn Growers Association and American Soybean Association. That analysis evaluates the impacts of a trade war on soybeans and corn. Bob Hemesath is board president for Farmers for Free Trade and says the analysis shows that American corn and soybean farmers would be devastated by the reemergence of a trade war. That analysis also shows that a trade war would reduce U.S. soybean and corn prices, which would harm rural economies across the country. He also says a trade war would be a gift to international competitors. Well, last month we saw a substantial monthly rise in food prices. Is it a start of a new round of price hikes?
Back in August, many food shoppers cheered the news that during August, grocery store food prices actually fell 0.1% from the month before. However, the food price index during September did a big bounce back, going up by almost 0.5%.
That is the highest monthly growth in grocery prices since January.
Ouch. But USDA economist Megan Schweitzer says we should not make too big a deal out of last month's fairly substantial increase in food prices. After all,
over this year, we've seen some months where there was no change in food prices, some months where there was a decline, and we've seen some months with larger increases. So we'll want to watch next month to see whether this is possibly the start of a trend or whether it is just a single month's variation in data.
Right now, for all of 2024, Megan's forecasting grocery store food prices will end up topping last year by only a tad over 1%, smallest yearly increase in years. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
On the heels of one of the warmest summers on record, AccuWeather long-range experts are forecasting a mild winter with above-average temperatures in dozens of states. The U.S. recently had its warmest winter season on record last December through February, and much of the country will see mild temps again. Long-range forecaster Paul Pastelak says we will likely have a weak La Nina for most of this winter. However, with a weak signal of La Nina, some cold can push into the Midwest and Northeast. Based on data from previous winters with a similar setup, Pastelak says February is the likely month for the polar vortex to usher in a blast of bitterly cold air across the eastern U.S. The markets, they're next.
Did you know soybeans' number one customer is animal agriculture? That includes Ohio's pig farms. Soybeans provide a blend of protein and energy to keep Ohio pig farms growing. Nationally, Ohio ranks 7th in pork production, and those pigs consume 6.3 million metric tons of soybean meal. It takes a lot of soybeans to make that kind of bacon. Soybeans feeding the industry that feeds us. Brought to you by the Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Soybeans grown in Ohio and across the heartland are meeting the feedstock demand for clean fuels. Biodiesel is a clean-burning and reliable fuel that enhances engine life, power, and mileage. Plus, this high-performance fuel works in any diesel engine without modification. With biodiesel, we fuel the economy, do good for the environment, and support soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org.
The market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. At the Board of Trade, December corn 404 3/4 up 3 1/2. March corn 420 1/2 up 3. November soybeans $9.80 down 11 cents. January beans $9.94 down 9 1/2. July wheat $6.21 up 4 1/2. At the Mercantile Exchange, October cattle 187.05 up 32 cents. December hogs 77.70 up $2.47. November feeder cattle 245.50 down 97 cents. This is the Ohio AgNet.